So let's talk about professional fee. In our industry, one of the biggest sticking points in a negotiation arena is defending our professional fee. What some of you might be referring to as commission, we like to call that the professional fee. So, do you get pushback on your professional fee, and how do those conversations play out?
Every one of those conversations, first of all, the answer is yes. We do get pushback. We have the conversation. I would say the conversation happens probably 90% of the time. I think it moves to the level of negotiation only 50% of the time, because usually they're asking just to confirm what your compensation is, your professional fee. And then secondly, if it's answered the right way, they're satisfied with it, right? And so part of it is making sure they understand the value that you're bringing to the table around that professional fee. I have 10 different ways. I'm just making up a number, but it's numerous. There are numerous different ways to establish and explain that value. I reserve them for the ongoing conversation, meaning if they're satisfied with the first answer, then we just move forward. If they still have questions, I go to the second answer, then the third or the fourth, right? Sometimes I'll combine, a couple of them together for a more impactful statement on the value that we bring, the resources that we bring to the table, the reach that we have, the experience, our track record, our outperformance of the market in general on a list to sales price ratio that we beat them every time. So all of these different ways and tools that I have to explain why we are worth what we do, I keep them in my hip pocket and I just keep shooting, I keep firing them, as
Right.
necessary. But most people understand value. They understand value when they hear it. They understand value when it's presented to them. And then a huge part of it is unpacking the fee itself, right? So they assume that the entire fee is going to you, which is normally not the case because we have cooperative brokers. We have the broker that's bringing the agent, bringing the buyer. I'm sorry. And so part of the fee, half the fee usually is going to that agent. So starting off there, right? So they understand the breakdown of the fee. On top of that, they understand the value that we bring for it. Usually the conversations aren't too difficult to have.
And so what came to my mind when you were talking about the various different dialogues that you have in your hip pocket is the importance of having those ready. And so they're often referred to in our industry as scripts, right? And so
Yes.
especially a agent that's just beginning is handed the book of scripts and say, memorize this. And I know I am one that just has that initial, I hate scripts, right? I hate them. They're canned. It doesn't sound like me. But the more that you use the ones that do resonate, the smoother that flows. And it sounds like that's kind of where you've ended up. And so, what would you say about utilizing scripts and that sort of thing for someone to get more comfortable?
Mandatory. There's no choice but to have scripts. There's no choice but to really learn how to handle different objections in multiple ways. And it starts with the script. Again, I'll come back to my acting days, right? For auditions, you had to learn the script. You had to learn the script. And what was so interesting to me is when I started to book work, when I started to book jobs, once you're on the set filming, you can veer from the script as much as you want, and they encourage it because they want to try lines in different ways. They want to try different responses, different facial expressions, and so forth. But you had to know the basic script before you could veer from it. And I always say you have to know the lines of the box before you can color outside of the box or think outside of the box, right? And we practice these things so that it's almost like muscle memory. You think of elite athletes, you think of even top actors, they practice their lines. Athletes practice their plays. Their plays are like their scripts, and they have to know the basics before they can veer from that. And I was listening to a podcast the other day. I listen to a lot of podcasts. Matter of fact, I have a podcast coming out, Tammy. So you guys will have to
Ah,
check out my full mogul podcast, which I'll tell you a little bit about before we finish. But I was listening to a podcast and they said something that I actually wrote down, and that was, don't practice until you get it right. Practice until you can't get it wrong. And I
oh,
love that. I thought that was really impactful. And that's what scripts will do for you.
and and we actually talk about that in the training is, take
Mhm.
a line from professional athletes
Right.
um, who are really successful, goats in whatever their field is,
Yeah,
but they continue to practice, right?
that's
Practice
right.
makes perfect. Practice gives you another opportunity to customize something, right? And your comments about learning the script before you go in for an acting job, and then there's a desire for you to deviate from that. That's what I see as a successful negotiating or path to agreement in our profession is having that groundwork, but
Right.
then knowing how to react to the moment, to the
Definitely.
situation. Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely. Um, so I'm curious if you can think of one particular negotiating experience or two that really stands out to you that you think back on that you would be willing to share.
Sure. The names will be changed to protect the innocent.
Of course they will.
I'll give two different examples. One was negotiating with an agent that was very emotional and very overreactive to everything. I always say that we are humans as well, but as the professionals in the equation, we have to filter our emotions. And we also have to be filters for the emotions of our clients. But this agent, everything was doomsday. Everything was, this is the end of it. This is terrible. This is crazy. And so, I had to revert to emails versus verbal engagement because we just weren't getting anywhere. And I wrote emails. We talked about earlier, sometimes you have to give agents the right words to say to their clients.
Mm,
I wrote emails that she could literally forward to her clients so that it could be conveyed without the emotional response and the infusion of these emotions. And it made things a lot better. I came to find out that she was the same way with her own clients. Her clients ultimately on closing day, they met me at the house to get the keys. She wasn't able to make it, but they were very unhappy with how the process was because she was overly emotional and made it such a roller coaster of a ride throughout. They were appreciative of our written correspondence and so forth. The other one is a client that I had that made the negotiations very difficult. And it's tough when it's your own client making the negotiations difficult because this was a celebrity client and they marched to the beat of their own drum. And that drum was playing some wild music, I'll tell you that. And so, part of negotiations to me, one of my own little hacks is to always humanize it, right? So if you can bring it back to a human level that people understand, people will even give a little bit more grace for, reactive behavior versus thoughtful responses, right? And so I needed to give them a glimpse into what I was dealing with. This person happened to be on a reality show. So I told them this Thursday, tune into this network, watch this show. That's the client, right? And you'll understand why we're having some of the communication challenges that we're having. They watch the show, they send me a note back. We totally get it, right? No worries.
wow.
We'll be patient and work with you through it. And we got through it. But it was helping them. Sometimes again, you hear that saying, don't shoot the messenger, right? Well,
Hmm.
sometimes it's okay, right? And be careful with it, but it's okay to say, I am the messenger. Here's where the message is coming from and why, but here's how we're going to get through it, right? And that's what I had to do in that moment.
Wow, what a great example on that one. And I know that everybody who's listening is envying the fact that you had the opportunity to tell those people to go watch your client on TV, right? Because I know all of us have that secret indulgence in the
Right,
reality shows of some
right.
respect, right? And we have our opinions of the characters and that sort of
Totally.
thing. What a fantastic story to be able to share.